This is the most experimental crypto you'll ever find. You're now entering the laboratory where anything can happen. We what we all care about is to create the strongest, most trustless, scalable system the world has ever experienced. Everything we say here can and will change. If you speculate based on this information, you do so at your own risk. If you're here looking for assurances and get stressed with all the back and forth, just means then it's free plus gas plus time. And or instead consider bonds or something with a fixed 10-year interest rate. End of disclaimer. Guys, we are in the very exciting genesis times of creating peer-to-peer infrastructure with X1. So what is X1? Fair Crypto Foundation is designing X1 as an open source L1 to achieve the original mission of blockchain, following the blockchain tenets of decentralization, transparency, counterparty risk resistance, peer-to-peer value exchange, and self-custody. In other words, we are creating the strongest, most powerful engine that will be powered by Zen and give Zen utility for decades to come. And this involves many parts. It involves tech, it involves the community, and it involves purpose. And that's just some of them. The token distribution is not only about dividing it up on participants. That's not going to take us anywhere, not fast enough at least. We are all in a huge uphill battle here as well. We have no funding, we have no marketing capital, we have no ecosystem funding, we have no team allocations. So how do we then become competitive? Why should anyone use our chain? It's all about using the energy that we have for creating synergetic forces. Having incentives to onboard into X1 on all chains is huge, but that's only one. Creating catalysts and momentum are other forces. Generating fees on the chain, attracting liquidity, bridging capital, getting builders from other ecosystems are others. Building in builder incentives is yet another. All of these forces need to be strongly individually and work in synergy with each other. They need to create something that is much stronger and less censorable than anything else out there. We have set the foundation now that will facilitate markets to be formed in all variations and be able to be established for decades to come. And most importantly, to have users, people in the billions to be adopted and use our infrastructure. And I would claim that we have done the most profound due diligence of any L1 leading up to the design of an L1. Instead of focusing on the tech first, we have focused on, and as we underline, the very importance of, in the early days of Zen, to break down the barriers of all the chains, uniting the users from all chains into a common goal of adoption. And this is our mission. Maximalism is FUD. Initially, many questions why we would even go to other chains other than Ethereum. Focus on one chain, they said. Today, we take it for granted to be on all the chains. And we need to continue to break down these barriers. While others have focused on tech first, then convincing users to come with artificial incentives, competing with features, we focused on the common denominators that incentivize activity. Others have hired teams of PhDs and tried to find use cases for their tech, comparing their performance to Visa, not realizing that you need activity to even get there in the first place. We have the activity, we have the community, we have the users. Now, when we have all of that, how can we optimize the infrastructure to facilitate the users who want the freedom to transact and interact peer-to-peer? Now we can take our time to do thorough research as to which tech will be the most powerful to optimize peer-to-peer interactions. And we have primarily focused on blockchains with sequential block production. But very recently, we began to really study DAGs, directed acyclic graphs. So, Jack, tell us a bit about DAGs and Fastnet. Word on the street is that it's super fast. Is it really that fast, Jack?
Had an opportunity to study technologies through Zen on every chain pretty much. So we went from Ethereum, which was relatively super slow, I would say. We went to Binance, we went to Avalanche, we went to EVMOS, and pretty much all the chains out there. Finally, we entered Bitcoin. But what really was interesting is that we were able to study how well or how poorly the chains handle Zen. in terms of minting NFTs or just minting Zen, whatever people choose to do. And we discovered that among the traditional technologies out there, the directed acyclic graph is probably the way to go. And just a few days ago, we launched this new DevNet that we call FastNet, which is extremely fast. It's using parallel block processing. It's not sequential like Ethereum. And just to give you an example, with Ethereum, you have to wait 12 seconds for the block to be processed, and then the consensus is really really slow. The time to finality on Ethereum is about 5 to 6 minutes, which is somewhat suboptimal. It's even slower on Bitcoin, but let's not talk about Bitcoin just yet because we're talking about EVM compatible stuff. So when it comes to DAG and parallel block processing, this technology allows you to build parallel hash graphs within the blockchain that allows people to submit their requests and have them processed almost instantaneously. The time to finality for a DAG system is about 1 second, which means that your transaction becomes irreversible within the second from the time that it got accepted by the network. And that's really, really interesting. So it uses a combination of, I would say, sharding when it comes to parallel processing, because like Ethereum is currently investigating sharding and how to make the whole system faster. But ecosystems like Avalanche and Phantom, and there's many others out there that are more or less well known. They're using this parallel processing of the blocks, where you don't have to wait for a block to be accepted by the network. You can just create your own block, and then you use the gossip protocol, where you immediately spread the transaction through all the available nodes randomly, and then those nodes gossip that information everywhere else in the network. So the propagation of the messaging and consensus is very rapid. It's pretty much exponential. It's not linear like Ethereum, and that's what allows for such a great speed. And so far, Fastnet that we launched is a fork of Phantom. So what we're doing is we're taking Phantom open source, and we're currently modifying it to better suit our needs for the Zen ecosystem and Zenians, and make it even faster. We're looking at various ways that we can be using gas. Like, for example, a network that's infinitely scalable is very, very inexpensive, but the cost of transactions, there's pluses and minuses. So the plus is obvious. You don't need to pay a lot for a transaction, but the minus is that it actually attracts a lot of spammers, because you can literally run bots and scripts, and if you barely pay half a cent for a transaction, you can spam the network with a lot of transactions. So we're working on a gas management system to actually allow the ecosystem to thrive, and at the same time have an ability to repel the spammers. And also, I was going to say that the funny thing about blockchains is that the cheapest blockchains out there, the ones that charge you the least for transactions, they have the least users. And the reason why they have the least users is because the gas token is it doesn't have any scarcity to it. Like, in other words, the transactions are so inexpensive, the deflationary force for the native gas coin is really really low, and so people are not really willing to buy a lot of it because they can execute their transactions on chain very inexpensively. So what we learned from the last 12 years being within crypto is that scarcity matters, deflation matters, and sometimes the speed and especially the cost can be detrimental for the chains to retain any value. Like for example, like let's say that if you have an economic pressure not to mint 1 million NFTs, but you can only mint, let's say, 1,000. That actually makes those NFTs more scarce and more valuable for the holders, and that actually makes sense. It makes sense to go into an ecosystem that has this monetary pressure that creates this scarcity for your assets, so it's actually valued more, and the floor to create a digital artifact is actually much higher. That is why Ethereum currently, even though being slow and the most expensive, actually has the most value. because you can't just set a bot and continuously mint something into oblivion, ultimately just to dump it on the market. So this is something that we want to avoid with Fastnet and with the X1 that's coming next year. We really want the barrier to entry to be somewhat significant, better than Ethereum, obviously, but not so inexpensive. So that allows for spam, for distributed denial of service attacks, and ultimately the devaluation through the creation of the assets en masse that's ultimately not going to be worth anything. So that's kind of like my 2 cents on X1. And obviously, we're very excited about this new technology. It's been around for a while. It's actually been around for like 3 or 4 years, but people really haven't really, I would say, paid attention to how to make it economically viable. And the biggest difference between what we're doing and what other people are doing when it comes to blockchain development is that generally it's a bunch of PhDs. You put them in the room and they try to make the network cheaper and faster, but they don't have any community. There's like basically zero community that's excited about the ecosystem. So something that comes to mind is the pioneers in the hashgraph technology, which is Hedera. So Hedera has this giant corporate presence, but they really don't cater to the little guy. And that's what we're here for. We really want the fair crypto to be truly fair, be available to the little guy, uh, really embody first principles, and not just have a bunch of PhDs in the room that trying to produce something amazingly fast that ultimately has no community, has no utility, and has no price appreciation. And we see it like we actually see like the fastest chains usually have the cheapest tokens. I mean, there's the market caps are significant, but certainly there is no appreciation moving forward just because their network getting cheaper, getting faster, and yet the value isn't there. Network should be multi-tiered, and we have originally presented our partnership with Libre, and Libre obviously uses amazing technology, half a second block times. So it's really fast. They're amazing for things like payments, almost zero transaction costs. They're not EVM compatible, though they may present an EVM compatibility sometime in the future. But the strength of Libre ecosystem is ability to link to Bitcoin and to link to the EVM world and to get the bridge up between those ecosystems. At the same time, they have pretty amazing mobile wallet that just works. I mean, we did a demo of the wallet on several streams, including the stream with Trivon. The system should be kind of, I would say, multipolar, where the transactions, uh, peer-to-peer transactions, where you're just sending coins or tokens back and forth between the users, can use, for example, something like Libre technology. In terms of DeFi, that would be the focus of X1, and X1 implementing the DAC technology is as fast as Libre. In with our benchmarks, we're able to produce blocks faster than half a second, which is pretty awesome. And at the same time, the what we're working on the gas usage with X1, we're thinking to borrow the concept from Phantom, where Phantom actually developed quite a bit of code to support gas sharing. So gas sharing basically means that if you build a project on X1 and it's super popular and obviously has a lot of transactions and uses a lot of gas, the portion of that gas goes to the deployer or the owner of the project. So whether it's a game or some sort of interesting DeFi or anything else out there that's runs on the EVM, you will be able to get XN tokens, the gas tokens that are spent by the users, and you will actually get a portion of it as the project owner, which I think is a pretty interesting approach, because on Ethereum, just if we were to contrast Ethereum, the base fees for gas, they're all burned, and that's causing Ethereum to be deflationary. So what we want to do is we want to combine the gas fee burn together with gas sharing, so that the portion of the gas spent actually will end up go to the project owners and project creators. So we feel that approach will actually bring a lot of builders to the ecosystem, because they will get an automatic fair incentive. Like if you build some sort of shitty project that nobody is using, then you're not going to get any rewards. But if you build an amazing project, and you build or bring a community together with you, then you will actually be able to generate XN native cryptocurrency off the chain, and it will go straight to your wallet. And that's, I think, the incentives are really would be aligned with people actually presenting something that's vibrant, and also you get pretty good compensation.